Hey guys, how you doing today? Uh, Kind of a dreary, snowy day today. I probably shouldn't have my phone out, but I'm gonna have it out anyway. Uh, this is gonna be one of these odd videos because I don't really know what to talk about. My birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday to me. Um, we did an inventory at work today, which meant I had to be there at 6:30 in the morning. So if I appear to be haggard and tired, it's because I'm haggard and tired. um, oh boy. If you've been following the channel, and I know some of you have, and God bless you. Like, God bless you guys. Like, the people who are like regular viewers, I don't quite understand it, but I appreciate it like you wouldn't really believe. And there are some of you who I genuinely think about pretty regularly. I hope you guys are really doing well, I really do. It's what a tough time. What a tough time. Like, even without the pandemic, right? Capitalism collapsing around us. It's tough to watch. It's tough to watch. I find myself counting my blessings in this time period, and I do have a lot to be thankful for. As I was saying, like, if you're paying attention to the channel, I just recently went through a fairly substantial bout of depression. Probably one of the worst that I've had in a year, and that includes during the start of the pandemic. I had a bit of a bout when the pandemic started and all that, which I thought was pretty normal, honestly. I think a lot of people had that, but this was a really bad one. And as I said in some of my videos, you got to do the detective work. You got to figure it out. And I think the thing, and I took to talking about climate change about it, but I think the thing that I really came on was, like, I realized that 2021 is going to be the same as 2020. I think that was it. And that's really what spiraled me down, and what really took the sails out of me, took the wind out of my sails, and made it difficult to want to continue forward, and made it difficult to want to get out of bed that day. That, I woke up and I knew, the new year had happened. I had a couple of days off. I had hoped that, I'll just relax, recover from Christmas season, like, that's great. But really, it gave my body an opportunity to decompress. I see this all the time. Like, I used to do a lot of shows. I used to stage manage and act and do stuff like this, and you'd see it all the time. You'd have actors around you, and during the run of the show, they'd be telling you, I'm sick. For sure I'm sick. And they'd look great. They'd look great. Maybe they'd have like a little sniffle or something, Some of them would integrate like a handkerchief to their character just to deal with like a little bit of sniffles or something. But they look great, And they'd do a show, and after the show, they'd come up to you and be like, "Whew, rough show for me." And I'd be like, "You look normal. Like, you look totally good." And they would. And then the closing night would come, and we'd have the staff party, and they would come to the staff party, and they would be sick. They would be sick, visibly sick, paler, sweating, coughing, sneezing. They go and sit in a corner, wrap a blanket around them. They would be visibly sick. And it's because they were holding it. Their body, the human body, does have the ability to hold on to things, to hold itself, and to brace. And once it gets that opportunity where it knows, okay, your journey is complete, you no longer need to keep it together, then it doesn't. And it decompresses, and it relaxes, and it goes, oh. Which I think is why the capitalist class cannot give the working class a meaningful collective break, right? Because if we are to all decompress together, we might realize that within that decompression, an expulsion of the parasite is necessary. And expelling the parasite that is the capitalist class is necessary for us to become a healthy society once again. But we can't be permitted to decompress collectively. Look at me, making about capitalism, as always. That's why you tune in, right? That's why you tune in, for the good capitalist commentary, the anti-capitalist commentary. That's the spirit, eh? I can turn everything into an anti-capitalist commentary. I'm very good at it. I realized that I was really good at that kind of thing with the basic income. I can turn any conversation into a basic income conversation, man. Any conversation. I'm really good at it. And that's an issue that I was formerly very passionate about. I'm more passionate now about transferring the shares from the capitalist class to the working class. That to me is going to be a more effective solution. Because while I agree with the basic income, while I think a basic income is going to be crucial for any complex society to resolve many of its issues in an efficient and streamlined manner, it doesn't resolve many issues within the society. Richard Wolff, if you don't know Richard Wolff, you got to go find Richard Wolff. Richard Wolff with 2 F's. He talks pretty openly about this, and he's not against a basic income per se, but he's correct when he says that a basic income doesn't address the power dynamic in the society, which is that there are owners who do no work and are worthless, and there are workers who do all the work and get little to none of the benefits. Like, I think about this all the time, man. Like, imagine you and I made a deal with one another, right? And I said to you, hey, you do all the work, right? You plant the seeds, okay? You plant the seeds in the soil. You tend to the crops, fertilize the crops, make sure everything's good, upkeep all the machinery, right? Take care of the land. And then when the time comes to harvest, you do the harvest, collect all the grain or the whatever we're producing, corn, I don't care. Put it in the silos, and then I'll give you enough so that you don't die, so that you can continue doing that, and I'll take the rest. And if you ask yourself, well, wait a minute, what did you do to take all that? I get to turn around and say, oh, well, I own that land. Like, you would not agree to those conditions. But the trouble is that it's not about you agreeing. That's what the conservative capitalists like to try to convince you, that it's a voluntary system. It isn't a voluntary system, right? I own the land because my father owned the land because the government gave my family the land after we committed a genocide against the people who lived on that land, to steal it. And you don't have a choice. If you don't work for me, you work for someone else. And this idea that there's such a thing as a good capitalist is ridiculous. Even if you met like a really nice man who's trying really hard to do his best, the system itself is so broken and fraudulent that he can't possibly be a nice man, right? Nice people can do very horrible things if the system itself is structured to do that. Which, guess what? Capitalism is structured to do that. Oh, there he goes again, riffing on that capitalism. Oh, that boy, he just needs to get a better job. Just needs to get a better job. Oh, it's childish. Oh, it's comical and childish. Oh, I have a friend who is really big into astrology. And I love her. I love her dearly, and I definitely pay attention. It's interesting. It's fun. Why the hell not? And she read me my horoscope for the year. And my horoscope for the year was, a project that you're working on will bear fruit faster than you think this year. And I went, oh, that's interesting. The trouble is that I have too many damn projects. That's my problem. It is my problem as a person. If I was to really critique myself with the same kind of ire that I critique the capitalist class and our society at large, it would be that I have too many projects on the go. I do too many things. I need to focus. And it's something I've known about myself for a long time, that like I have I guess a short novel that I'm working on called Boat that I love. It's an absurdist fairy tale. I have a film script. Get this. I've been working. You guys are going to think I'm the dumbest for this, and you're right. You're absolutely right. You're totally correct. I'm for some reason I'm writing a film script about Jafar, right, from the Disney movie Aladdin, but it's his redemption arc, right, after he gets put into the lamp. Why am I doing that? I don't know. It's interesting to me. And it allows me to explore ideas and concepts that I have been banging around in my head for a long time. I won't delve into it too much unless you guys like really want me to, but I'm not going to. And I've got my music. I write music as well. That one's kind of easy. That one just sort of peppers through my life. But I mean, and then I'll go out and do like a stand-up comedy thing where I suck. I definitely suck. So I just am like all over the place, right? Like I have no focus. It is nice from the perspective of like once I kind of feel one project is getting a bit tedious, then I like turn around and can work on another project. And then I can turn back around and start working on the other project. So I bounce back and forth, right? With the hope that eventually I'll reach some kind of completion. But I never complete anything. Because historically what happens in my life is that I move. I leave the province. I've lived all over Canada. And I keep moving. And I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Certainly not out of the city. I think I'm living in Toronto now, and I think that's where I'm going to stay. Unless something catastrophic happens, which it might. Never forget, the whole thing could come collapsing down at any moment, and probably will. And just while that's all going on, and like in the midst of this pandemic, I'm trying to start relationships with people, and I'm starting to make new friends and do new stuff, and nothing works in that regard. The whole thing is a complete catastrophe. It is a total catastrophe. It's a total catastrophe, you guys. Everything is horrible. But I have to count my blessings, because I do have blessings, and I am blessed. I think about the timing of my promotion into the position that I'm at. While it sucks that I'm kind of being ground under the heel of a capitalist machine, at the same time, like, I don't have to worry about food and shelter. Like I am set in that regard. I am. It's done. I literally right before the pandemic started, I got promoted to the position I'm currently in, and it completely resolved all of those financial concerns for me. And I still see people who are my age, who are in the position I was in, and they're still struggling to find work, and they're still hustling, and they're still doing all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, oh, thank God. Thank you. Whatever force is responsible for that sort of thing. I'm very grateful that I don't have to engage in the side hustle. I see people every day, they're engaging in the side hustles, and they're engaging in this stuff. There's anybody who's working for like Uber Eats or Uber generally, or like any of these side hustle kind of things, right, that you see them, the gig economy. Oh, I don't know how you could be a politician and feel good about yourself knowing that your society is working in this gig economy. Like what a farce. But I mean, these politicians, they don't really think about us. honestly. They just think about brunch with their friends. That's what they care about. They're not really thinking about us. You know, we're we're well forgotten. We can take care of ourselves as far as they're concerned. And the real travesty, the real tragedy of this pandemic, if you ask me, is that the Liberals passed a basic income and then did everything they could to dismantle it. Like, 9 million people, Justin Trudeau said this himself, 9 million people applied for the CERB. That's 1 in 4 people, right? It's 25% of the population got themselves into a position where they felt they needed that kind of support. And you know what? It's a goddamn good thing they got it. Because we could have the breadlines like exist in the United States. We could have people hurting. We could have people getting evicted. We could have all that. Absolutely we could. We just needed to not pass the CERB, right? We just needed to not have that. And once it was passed, all the Trudeau administration had to do was maintain it. That's it. They just had to tie a bow on it and just say, okay, it's here now. Here it is. It exists. And that would have been it. That just would have been it. It would have been here. The society would have been better off with it than without it. It would have alleviated a lot of anxiety for people. It would have alleviated a lot of stress for people. It would have been. It would have improved the society immediately and immensely. Because the CERB did improve the society. The CERB absolutely improved the society, visibly, objectively. And the people who are standing around saying like, oh, well, we couldn't afford it, like, these people are illiterate. They're just illiterate. They don't understand a thing about what they're talking about. And if you're illiterate, like, if you don't know anything, you can say anything you want about any subject. Because if you don't have a backing, like, if you don't actually know what you're saying, like, I respect people who don't know what they're talking about and say they don't know what they're talking about, while simultaneously expressing their concerns. Like, if you're gonna come at me and you're gonna say like, well, I'm concerned, like, I don't know economics that well, I don't understand that subject, but don't you feel that this is what could happen? And if I turn around and say, okay, like, here's a great one, right? Won't the basic income make people lazy? Oh, okay. That's a real knee-jerk reaction, I think. That's a real, like, gut sort of thing that comes from a real place of capitalist propaganda, right? People don't understand that they've been propagandized with that they've been propagandized against their neighbor when they just say, won't people just be lazy? I've heard people who I consider to be leftists, like frigging Maoists, people like on the far left, who will say to me, won't people just be lazy? And they're not saying it like, well, won't people just be lazy, like Archie Bunker, right? Like, they're inquiring. Don't you feel that people will just kind of sit around and be lazy? And what's really interesting about that question is that every single time I've been asked that, I say to them, well, would you be lazy? Would you? And I've never had anyone say like, yeah, of course I would. I would just sit around and do nothing all day. No. Every single person goes like, well, no. I would embark on my interests. I would follow my passions. I would do X or Y, follow this artistic route, do this thing, do that thing, right? Everybody, and without fail. And once they do that, I just go like, well, then why do you think they would sit around and be lazy? Why do you think your neighbor wouldn't also do exactly what you're talking about, right? And most of the time they go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from there. And they sort of dwell on it and think about it, right? But then on top of that, right, you start pointing out like, hey, the basic income, there have been experiments. Like, we've done pilot projects on the basic income. There are actually societies that now have a basic income. Spain has a basic income already. And productivity never goes down. Like, at worst, it remains stable, which is like, that's a huge win, if you ask me. Even if your productivity slightly dipped, right? Your productivity dips slightly, but you don't have any homeless people on the street anymore. I think you can bite that bullet. You know, I think you can bite that bullet a little bit, right? Uh, because like the true reality is that like what capitalists don't want you to realize is that uh, your productivity is still valuable to the society, right? Like you will be productive for yourself and your neighbors. That's worthless to capitalists, right? They're parasites. They want your productivity for themselves. They want you to work for them. And if you don't work for them and you work for yourself or you work for your neighbors or you work for your community instead, that's worthless to capitalists, right? That's why they don't want the basic income, because they want that productivity for themselves. And they want you to fight to maintain their system of productivity. They want you to keep selling yourself to them. That's what they want. They're not interested in you creating some kind of community outreach program, or they're not interested in you donating your time to soup kitchens or to they're not interested in you creating an artistic scene, creating an actual culture, right? Because we don't actually have a culture. Have you noticed? We don't really. Like this superhero schlock is the best that we've got. It's or like Star Wars, right? It's not really a culture, you know. It's kind of like a parody of a culture. It's just somebody trying to sell you a culture, you know. That's what it is. It itself is not a culture. It's just salesmen trying to sell you a culture, so that they can make money for themselves. Yeah. We don't really have a culture. Like, what is it? What is our culture? And and you can really tell because in like 10 years time, maybe even shorter than that, by the way, uh, uh, all this superhero bullshit will be gone. It'll just be replaced with something else, some other thing that captures our imagination. And it'll be stunning how quickly it happens. Like take a look at what happened to Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones went from being like the top of our cultural conversation, right? Like we here in Canada were saying things like "We the North," right? Like we had a whole slogan that was completely tied into this Game of Thrones idea, right? And when they destroyed the show because of their stupidness and their pettiness, it dropped completely out of the cultural conversation, right? Game of Thrones went from being like the cultural talking conversation point to not existing in the culture any longer. It can happen that quickly, especially with things that are so fragile culturally, right? Like Game of Thrones was not our culture. It was just being sold to us as our culture. True culture comes from the community. True culture exists in the community. It comes through festivals. It comes through community. And we don't really have a culture. Not really. Not really. We're kind of a mishmash amalgamation of other people's cultures, or other nations' cultures, other societies' cultures, right? But like Canada certainly doesn't really have a culture. American culture is odd and is steadily actually being dismantled, right? This worship of the founding fathers, this patriotism angle, the flag, all this kind of stuff, it's being dismantled, as it should be, because it's like at this stage in the game. Here's a hot take. Here's a hot take. Saluting the American flag is to me like throwing up the arm with a swastika. It's not much different to me. Like, I don't think that there's much of a distinction to be made there at this stage in the game. Like, the Americans have killed far more people. The outright disasters that the Americans have perpetuated on multiple nations throughout the globe for much longer than the Nazis ever did. Yeah, hot take. I'll defend that too. I will. Like, the Americans the Americans have put forward far more genocides than the Nazis did. They've done far more damage. Like, the Nazis didn't attempt to destroy the entire species the way the Americans are barreling us towards our own destruction, right? The Nazis didn't drop nuclear bombs on defenseless civilian populations, right? Anyway, hot take. Okay, with that hot take, hey, you know me, guys. I always end on an upbeat note. Always gotta be uplifting. Leave you with like a little spring in your step. Nuclear bombardment of civilian targets. Okay, bye everybody. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, hit all the bells, hit all the whistles. If you've reached this point, if you're here right now for whatever reason, and you're not subscribed, subscribe, right? You obviously like what's happening here. You obviously like, I don't know, you like me. You like my smooth radio voice and my face for radio. Hit all the bells, hit all the whistles. You'll notice down in the description I've added a Patreon. Go ahead and a buck. You could throw a buck my way. Every little bit helps. I don't know. Just trying to make it happen. Hi, Mom. My mom has been watching this. Yeah, she's very concerned about me. All right, guys. That's the end of me. Good luck. We're gonna need it.